Well, good morning and welcome to Doppler's Gear Garage. Great to see you. Let's get the comments up and running here. First of all, it's time to raise them up. Come on, raise them up. So what all I can't even speak. What all are you drinking this morning? I got my little protein caffeinated shake here, raising it up for you. Let me know in the chat where you're coming from and how your Saturday and your weekend is going thus far. I want to be able to see my comments here. So where the heck are my comments? There we go. All right, first of all, Chris Alexander, my dear friend, always great to see you. Hello. Brenton, holy cow. There we go. Tongue out. With a little bit of that on my tongue, probably not the most visually pleasing sight. Melissa Doppler, always a pleasure. All right, excellent. Brenton, great that you're feeling great. Awesome, awesome. Griffin Gaines, hello this morning, doppelgangers. John Mello, how was New York? We're going to be talking all about New York. Awesome, awesome. Mike Mitchell, good morning. I'm glad you made it. Always a pleasure, my friend. Bobby Valdez, good morning to you, my Bay Area friend. Sonia, good morning from Frankfurt, Germany. Hello, hello, hello. All right, Southern Style, Sweet Tea, North Georgia. I love that. Love to see you guys saying hello. Shane Wise, I would never in a million years call myself the Gear Whisperer. But Shane, since you called me out, it is one of my most beloved terms of endearment that anybody has ever called me. And I am so humbled and grateful for that. You have no idea. Drinking Mr. Brown's macadamia nut iced coffee. That sounds sweet. Melissa Doppler again. Hello, hello. All right. Java and the Maestro, happy Saturday, Christopher. Great to see you. Okay, holy cow. Melissa is drinking some Pete's there. So at the heart of all of this, there's an Optavia shake and what originally started off as 4 shots of espresso. But that was at about 6 this morning. So I'm, I guess you could say I'm percolating. All right, great. So first of all, thanks for joining me. Second of all, I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about last week's concert in New York City with Joe Satriani and Steve Vai. It was an amazing, hello Braden, and I've actually learned how to pronounce your name. Good to see you. I didn't realize you were coming from Canada. That's awesome. And I love to see the crosstalk there. That kind of warms the heart. All right, so Mr. Satriani and Mr. Vai. You know what? I think we're going to go back a little old school because I rarely get a chance to tell some of the old stories. But that is from a nightclub in Los Angeles circa 1985 called the FM Station. Hey, what's going on, Brad? Great to see you, my friend. Hello, hello, hello. There we go. From Umbria in Portland. So, the Vai Satriani story started for me in 1979. Everybody at Berkeley High was going to this guy, Joe, to take guitar lessons. I was like, well, okay, I guess I'll check this guy out. And if you think, all right, everybody's talking about the local guitar teacher, you're kind of like, yeah, whatever. My first lesson, I walked in and, he and I had a phone call before then. So we kind of talked about mutual musical influences and kind of, so it was already kind of, and I remember, the conversation, it was already kind of like, there was some rapport around who we listened to and what we're into. I think the fact that I listened to Mahavishnu Orchestra and Return to Forever for him meant that it wasn't, quote unquote, just another metal kid that wanted to learn the latest metal song. So as I came in for my first lesson, one of the things that happened was quite often there would be, Joe's amp and then the student cable. And Joe had a small practice amp, but with you can see right over there somewhere it has been removed. No, you can see it right there. We go. Right there is a big muff. It's not shining this morning, but Joe used to play through this big muff, and it was this incredible tone. What's going on, Jerry? Good morning, my friend. It is definitely a good. Hold on, Chicago. Awesome, awesome. Summer in Chicago, my friend, is one of the most beautiful things ever. So enjoy, my friend. Sonia, yes, this is very much a Guitar Friends hangout. Awesome. So Joe would quite often kind of pass the cable between the student amp, which was basically you're plugged into the second channel of this little combo, and then his one, which would have the big muff and maybe some delay. At that point, it would have been a DM2, a Boss DM2. And so he had me play a little rhythm. No, he played rhythm and he handed me the lead cable and I soloed. And he went to this change and I kind of heard him setting it up and he went to it and I followed the change and he stopped and he was like, "How did you know I was going to do that?" And I was like, "I don't know, it just kind of sounded like you were gonna do it." And he was like, "Okay." And then we swapped cables, and then Joe soloed. And I remember walking out of there feeling like my guitar case had 10 extra pounds of bricks, and I was like, I understand why all the kids in Berkeley are now studying with this guy. So for the next 3.5 years, my mom would drive me to lessons on Saturday morning for an hour for I think what was probably $20, maybe 22. It went up to 22 towards the end, as I recall. And it was just an amazing experience. The last year or so, I remember coming in for one of my lessons, and I usually don't go this deep, but here we are. James, what's going on? Quick hello to you, my friend. Nice to see you. So, the last year, I kind of came in on a Saturday and said, I've kind of shown you all the things that I know, which was, I didn't buy it then, and I still don't believe it now, but I was like, well, let's just play. So the last year of lessons, all we did was every Saturday. My mom actually isn't alive anymore, so you can't tell her. But I was going to say, don't tell my mom. But like what we would do is we would just sit there and jam. And it was really cool because we would play over these different things. There was an early version of Banana Mango. And we would just kind of play over some odd metered stuff, some mode changing stuff, and really explore the tonality of modes and doing different things. It was an amazing experience. And then I came back from GIT, where I studied. Actually, I went down to GIT, and before I did, Joe gave me Steve Vai's phone number. So when I got to Los Angeles, I called this guy, Steve, and said, "Yeah, I got a gig, blah, blah, blah. Why don't you come down?" So I met Steve. That's where I met Stu Ham for the first time. And Chris Frazier, who plays in Foreigner these days, was playing drums. And so I got to know Steve there. Long story short, I kind of ended up being a kind of impromptu roadie and every so often guitar tech. And one of the cool stories that when I was in New York was we were counting to Dante, who of course is the second guitarist in Mr. Vai's band these days. It was absolutely amazing, love. So I was talking about there was a guy named Elwood who was Steve Vai's guitar tech, and before that he was Yngwie's guitar tech. And about 2 or 3 months ago, I'm looking at this thing and like talking about the guy that's the guitar tech for ZZ Top, or he was the bass tech. And then all of a sudden I'm kind of reading a little bit deeper and I'm realizing the guy that's now playing bass in ZZ Top was Steve Vai's guitar tech on that gig. It was insane. So in any case, Woody, Elwood, now plays in ZZ Top. So it just goes to show the path to stardom may not always be exactly what you expect. In any case, I thought that was hilarious. So Melissa and I are going to a wedding in Australia that coincided with the dates of my tickets in the Bay Area. And my much treasured student Nandini and I were having a lesson. She was saying she's preparing for a PhD and she didn't think she was going to be able to go and blah, 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 blah. And I kind of, before that I had been hunting for shows that I could go to knowing that I couldn't catch the Bay Area show because I'll be in Australia. So I kind of researched travel dates and airplane fees. It was just too much. And finally, Nandini, it looked like she was going to have this extra pair of tickets. I was like, I'll take one, but let me kind of research fares. I found we were able to trade some miles from some credit cards that we had, and so I was there. I basically flew in on the Friday. The gig was on the Saturday. I flew out first thing Sunday morning. For me, there was a lot of nostalgia to this because I'm going to unpack the story a little bit more. In 1986, Chicago NAMM show, I flew to Chicago with Joe, and that's where that photo that you see on the homepage of Satriani's site of Joe and Steve, that was taken. I didn't take that photo, but basically I flew out with Joe. The entire plane ride, he grilled me on harmonizing the harmonic minor scale in triads. Let's see if I can embarrass myself or not. Basically, you have an augmented, a minor, a major, and a diminished, a minor, and another diminished, and then an augmented. I actually remember it. But at that point, I wasn't quite so literate with how to harmonize the triads of harmonic minor slash Phrygian dominant, and it was in a classically Joe Satriani moment, a very grueling plane ride, but in a great way. I still have that little sheet of me kind of writing on that on the plane. So I ended up staying. Holdsworth was supposed to. What's going on, Mark? Always a pleasure. Great to see you, my friend. How do me a favor in a moment? Let me know what your thoughts of the show was. And so I'm getting there. So I got a chance to. At that point, I was demoing. Thank you, Joaquin. Habla español, sí o no? Muy bien, muchas gracias. Mi guitar es un. This guitar, I'm famous for kind of jumping out of my chair, but I do have to say this is the slightly budget version of the Chet Atkins. But thank you, I love this guitar. It's the Epiphone version, but I absolutely love that. And it's a little out of tune at the moment, but I just got that back from Gary Brower. He was doing some work on it. That guitar, actually there's going to be a song on the upcoming album with Larry Mitchell, and it's an instrumental version of Shape of My Heart. And that guitar is instrumental, so to speak, for that song. It's a beautiful guitar, so I'm glad you dig it. Thank you very much. All right, Chicago NAMM show. So it turns out Holdsworth was supposed to come out with the whole crew, but didn't make it. So Cliff Coltrane, the guy that had signed Joe to Relativity and also put out Flexible, was like, hey, got an extra bed at the Hilton Towers. I was like, I'll take it. So I was also out there at the show demonstrating for Schoen guitars. And there's some photos of that. There's some folks that came by. Derek Friga, who played in Enough's Enough. He's no longer with us, but was an amazing guitar player. PJ Marks came out. Vivian Campbell was at the booth. So, so I got to demo for Neil's guitar company, which was really, really cool. Then the unveiling of the gem. This was literally kind of that moment in history. Rumor has it was the largest, biggest endorsement ever. $250,000 is what I heard was the price tag to bring Mr. Vai in, because, of course, he was kind of at the pinnacle of the David Lee Roth moment. And then headed over to a venue called the Limelight, which is where Joe played, to the best of my knowledge, the very first set with the trio, Jonathan Mover and Stu Hamm. Dialing the clock back, actually, we're going to go all the way there. One of the things that happened when I was in Los Angeles, Steve gave a pair of clinics at GIT. They were 2 in one day, and at the clinics, Stu was playing bass, and I ended up playing Joe a cassette of that, and Joe was like, "Who's that bass player?" So rumor has it. What's going on, Michael? Great to see you. Hello, hello, hello. I love guitar stories, by the way, so thank you. I take very little encouragement, but I will take that and run with it. So that's how Joe heard about Stu. And so, I still have that cassette floating around somewhere, but, I played him the solo because, Stu was already doing Moonlight Sonata and the Charlie Brown thing, and, I played it for Joe, and he was like, wow, that guy, who is that? So that's kind of how Joe heard about Stu. So, in any case, that was the first show where the trio played, and it was just, an incredible experience, seeing Joe literally playing the first. There were some shows that he had done in Europe with a slightly different band, none of the same members, but he was playing some of the early instrumental stuff. But he did a set entirely from Not of This Earth because Surfing hadn't come out. But one of the things that I left with, that's floating around here somewhere, is a cassette of Surfing with the Alien, but it's the Surfing with the Alien roughs. So the kick drum on Always With You, Always With Me is different, and it was just the rough mixes. It wasn't the final album. So, it was just, I remember sitting in the Chicago airport afterwards, bought a little kind of blaster with me, you can't say ghetto blaster because that could be politically incorrect, but that's what I started to call it. Sitting there listening to it, and the last one is Echo, and then the cassette ended. And to this day, it's one of my favorite tracks because it's just got such an amazing vibe. So at the end of Joe's set, Steve comes out, and the two of them jam. It had been the first time in 10 years that they played. So for me, that was a very nostalgic moment, at that point having known both Joe and Steve. After that, we kind of ended up in the kind of green room of the venue. Cliff was buying expensive rounds of champagne. The $100 bills were flowing, as was the champagne. It was I was 24. I was 24 once. Rumor has it. Chad Boston, what's going on? I was just in my inbox and I saw your message. I will be replying to you a little bit later. So hello. Great to see you, my friend. And Spencer, hello. Great to see you as well, my friend. So Spencer, we will be coming back to this thing, but he sent me an email, and I love when people kind of bring things to the surface. Brief pause. I'm in the process of developing what's going to be called the 360-degree Guitar Podcast, and it's going to be covering a range of things that pertain to the guitar universe. And Spencer basically said, what's become of the music business? So invariably, that's going to be one of the episodes. I'm in the process of developing course curriculum, this podcast, releasing an instrumental album and a vocal album, in the process of working up a demo for the Mesa Boogie Mark 7, and there's an influx of new gear that's coming in here. So kind of all these different revenue streams that people can begin to look at outside of the traditional record company model, because Spencer was like, the stream thing is getting like that. So it's a new world. I think everybody kind of, if they don't have a day job, are kind of fancying themselves some form of influencer. And the ways that you can generate revenue doing all of that is one of the important things that I'm going to hopefully get a chance to speak to. Peter, hello. Nice to see you. I'm getting to the Beacon Theater, so what a great night, right? Welcome to the show. Thanks for checking in. Hello. Brett Milligan. Good morning to you. That's a big question. What has become of the music business? So, the neat thing is that I am Baby Rabbit Trail. I'm in the process of also developing the first in a series of guitar lesson products, and we'll be back to the Satch story in but a moment, where 15-minute fundamentals is how every day you can sit down with a guitar and just make sure that you're kind of going uphill in progress instead of downhill and falling off. And it's the first in a series of titles that I'm going to be doing. But the idea is to really help equip guitar players with some strategies around practice and how they can do that. And that, I think many people are kind of realizing. There's a thing that you may or may not have seen on Facebook where Tim Pierce is talking about the success he's had with Kajabi. Kajabi is an LMS, Learning Management System. And he grosses over $1 million a year. I was like, wait, what? That's rather a lot of money for not having to leave his chair. So, the business model has changed, but for those of us that have spent all these years teaching and whatnot, what's going on? Good. Heads up. Tom, hello. Good morning to you, my dear friend. Bay Area in the house. Getting back to the Satriani story. That Chicago experience was very near and dear to my heart. Getting a chance to see Joe and Steve jam for the first time in 10 years. And then kind of hanging out with them after the show was just kind of like, at 24, those of us that aren't 24 anymore, it was kind of the equivalent of those peak experiences from high school that you remember being with your buddies. I was recently at a wake for one of my high school buddies, and you kind of have this kind of going back in time experience that, takes you back to these key events that you remember, special memories. And so that night has lived with me, and I've kind of been around Joe a bunch since then, but this tour in particular to see just Joe and just Steve, and that song, Sea of Emotion, I saw that and I was just like, I played that video umpteen hundreds of times at this point, and that rapport and that musicality is very, very special to me. So I was like, there's no way on earth if I can possibly see this tour that I'm going to miss it. So off to New York I went. Joe was kind enough to comp me a ticket. I kind of sat with a group of folks that were friends of Joe and Steve. And then first of all, after we got a chance to go out and hang out and so on and so forth. The show. What I loved, what was special. Steve set, first of all, Steve's command of the stage, in case you haven't seen Steve, I don't know, a dozen times. He's one of the most brilliant showmen, but still manages to keep the whole guitar thing together. For those of us that play live, the ability to manage... That's my impersonation of string noise and kind of all the things that can go wrong. And, you're bending in tune in the midst of doing all this crazy stuff. It's very hard to do to make it seem so polished, but so relaxed, but such a stage presence. It's amazing. It sounded great, played great, the band's great, everything. Then Joe came out, and I will say Joe was having an amazing night. I mean, and the other thing is, one thing that I noticed that I don't think I ever consciously noticed before, Steve does not use a microphone stand. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever taken, and I went to grab my photos, my photo that I grabbed from my phone, all 79 that I was going to stream through, didn't want to decompress in iPhoto for the show. So I apologize, but I had some cool photos. I'll just have to post them. I was going to share them today, but technology. So one of the things I noticed in the show is that Douglas MacArthur, Steve's tech, would bring the handheld mic out to him and then it would disappear. And the thing about that is important for us instrumental guitar players is it means that you don't have a mic stand in front of you when somebody's snapping a photo. So you're able to get all these great photos. And then I was going back through the photos of Joe, I was noticing that, first of all, they would bring out a second mic stand for when he was playing harmonica, and that would disappear. But that microphone stand that gives you the ability to have an ongoing dialogue with the audience, a bunch of the photos I snapped, that microphone stand is right smack in the middle of the photo. Now, this gets me to my point about Joe and those of us that play live. I did a series of shows with Larry Mitchell last summer, and one of my buddies, Chris, showed up for one of the shows, and he kind of said, you need to be taking center stage more, because I have a tendency to camp out at the pedal board, but not totally inactive, but just kind of work that region of the stage, if you will. Angeline on bass over there, drummer in the back, but Chris was really like, you need to be working, the pedal board and the stage thing. And this is one of the things that Joe did. Steve generally stayed in the center of the stage, worked the center of the stage brilliantly. But what Joe did was he had two main points, besides going out and hanging out with Brian Beller, that he really, really worked back and forth and back and forth. So it meant that if you were sitting on for me, the left side of the venue facing the stage, you had a moment with Joe. If you were sitting on the other side of the venue, when he came center stage, if you were on the far right of the venue from the audience perspective, you still got to see lots of Joe. And not only that, he just had so much energy and so much fire and was playing his behind off. One of the other interesting things that happened was his wah-wah pedal decided to die mid-set, and it basically kind of took, actually 2/3 of the way through, and it took he basically had them take the pedal board off stage, and he played without a pedal board. Small variation in tone, sounded amazing, played amazing, and it was kind of like a show must go on moment, and it was just amazing to watch him just kind of go, I'm here to play. And he sounded just as amazing, he played just as well, but it's very interesting seeing, especially on a night when, I've seen Joe dozens of times. It was probably the best I've ever seen him play, which is really kind of, when you're talking about near perfection, kind of like, well, how close to perfection. It was just the vibe and the energy, but the level of the performance and the delivery for the audience, because this is, again, for those of us that play live, it's really easy to have your face down in the guitar and be buried here. It's really easy to have your head down and your pedal board doing all of that, versus actually engaging the audience and really bringing them in. And Joe, where Steve is a performer, Joe is almost like he's a performer, but he's also kind of inviting you into his living room. It's a different vibe between the two, as it should be. And I just really love the welcoming feel that he has, where it's just kind of, again, every performer has the way that they interact with the audience. Each one of them, what I love about Steve, one of the photos that I wasn't able to easily come up with, which really bummed me out, was this one particular photo where Steve has got, like, as usual, where is this thing where he's hoisting the guitar by the bar? But I mean, a big part of it is, I don't normally wander around the living room. There we go. There we go. With the guitar being held by the whammy bar. So that's not necessarily living rooms of, hey, Steve Vai, we're cutting up some roast in the other room, just hanging out of the whammy bar. Where Joe has this kind of like, hey, you're in the living room with me, I'm hanging out, we're doing this thing. But the thing is that Steve is such a brilliant performer. And my favorite thing that he didn't do in Steve Emotion, he does this in the video where he just kind of, it's just, he has so many Vai-isms that are really, really, really cool. If I'm fanboying a little bit, I apologize, but I don't really. Then, of course, the two of them jammed. They played Sea of Emotion, and they played Enter Sandman, and they played You Really Got Me. And Sea of Emotion was pretty much why I came into that thing and watched the two of those guys, as opposed to jamming over something, actually playing a song that they'd worked out, was one of the most musically inspiring, uplifting moments, because you're watching, it's the equivalent of, I don't know, Jimmy Page and Angus, Eddie and Randy, arguably the two most iconic living guitar players in the world, in the rock realm, if you will. I'll reduce that a little bit so I don't annoy anybody too much, playing together. And it was just awesome. Just awesome. And the rapport and watching how they play the harmonies together and the rhythm stuff together, it was just really magic. And honestly, pretty much just as good was Enter Sandman, was Ray Thistlethwaite. Try and spell that last name, by the way. Did an amazing job of fronting the band. It was just like, holy cow, it was really interesting. Rumor has it that there were two people that introduced Kirk Hammett to Joe Satriani. Again, I very rarely tell these stories, especially not in a video, but since we're live streaming. So a few decades ago, I was 19 years old, and I was playing at this jam in San Francisco. And at the end, they had the Guitar Death Showdown. It was the Fab Mab, Fabulous Mabuhay Gardens in San Francisco. And I'm backstage warming up, doing 3-note per string speed exercise A. And this guy's next to me, and he says, where did you learn to do that? I said, oh, there's this guy in Berkeley, Joe Satriani, 524-9590. That guy's name was Kirk. So when I last spoke to Kirk about it, Kirk was like, I thought Danny Gill gave me Joe's phone number. So it's entirely possible that he got Joe's phone number from two different places. In any case, I used to there was a period of time Joe and I were alternating days teaching at the store. And I remember coming down, because I used to live next door, literally, coming down one day, and Rebecca, Kirk's ex-wife, was sitting downstairs. And I didn't know Rebecca yet. And she was kind of sitting in the front of the store. I said, can I help you? And he said, oh, my husband's in there taking a lesson. So in any case, Bay Area is a very small world, but a great one at that. So it was really neat for me to get a chance to watch Joe play Enter Sandman. And, the neat thing is that when Kirk was studying with Joe, a number of the things that you'll hear Kirk doing were things that Joe was going over and helping Kirk hone, which was really, so again, coming 360 watching that. So afterwards, kind of hung out backstage. Alex Skolnick was there. Steve Blucher from DiMarzio was there. Before the show, I ran into some Dreamcatcher folks, which is always a pleasure. And it was just an amazing night. Just the whole vibe and the whole thing. I got a chance to meet some of Steve Vai's relatives, which was pretty cool. And just the whole thing was awesome. So, and then I came home, and here I am. Oh, I missed a few comments here. There we go. So, okay, hang on. All right, I want to dig in a little bit here. Recording a podcast, releasing an instrumental album, developing curriculum, repairing the music business. Sounds like a typical Tuesday for the Gear Whisperer. I love you, Shane. You know that. Yeah. Joe was on fire in Atlanta too. So, Chris, the interesting thing you said, what did I think about the videos? I love the videos. It was great. One of the photos that I wanted to share was Joe with Satch Boogie, the video playing in the background. I love the fact that both Joe and Steve, at different times, so when Steve did whatever it was, the 25th anniversary of, well, first of all, Steve is playing along with For the Love of God, right? Which I finally realized, it looks like, by the garb he's in the Himalayas, but I realized that's the Sierras. Like, that's Lake Tahoe that's in that. And I kind of went, I get this. So it was also great to watch the two of them kind of playing along with videos and sync, and it added an element of continuity, and the big screen is a really important part of the thing. The interesting thing is that they were using that as kind of additional media, as opposed to, like, there's a camera following them around on stage, which I thought was really cool. Good morning, Mike Rand. Always a pleasure. So won't pedal. I missed something there. Tom explained that to me. Brian Beller struggled for a while in the early days. Now he's quite busy. James, I don't know much about Brian's early life, but I can tell you at the G4 in Vegas a year and a half or so ago, he was also the house bass player, and to watch him play with all those guys, most significantly for me, Eric Gales. Eric Gales, when I watch him play, just like with Taj Farrant, I'm like, I'm watching a living legend. With Joe and Steve, you're watching living legends. That's just it. There's no denying it. But with watching him play with Eric Gales, I kind of went, there's nothing this guy can't play. But he was laying it down on a level. Afterwards, I kind of, hopefully not too fanboyish, I went like, dude, the way you were laying in on those grooves, I was like, because with his day job, with the aristocrats, say that 10 times fast, one would think, oh, he's a fusion guy because he does that so well. But seeing him with Eric Gales, I was like, actually, I totally had it wrong. He's a groove player. And what he brings to the Satriani thing is he brings all that world of musical diversity, which I just flippin' loved it. Thursday, I love it. Lucky you. Awesome. This eye contact and smile thing, it's a very interesting thing, is that, as a performer, there is this imaginary line between you and the audience, whether it's in video, whether it's in person, whether it's on a big screen because you're in a venue that's large enough that most people aren't close to you, whatever it is, the way you're going to choose to engage the audience, conscious or otherwise, really says a lot for how you draw people in. With Steve, what I love about him is you're going to get the Steve Vai show. And it's a very different experience for me than the Satriani show. And seeing them back to back, because I'm in the process of, in a perfect world, once Caleb and I kind of get these songs recorded, first of all, there's a bunch of video. There's 6 videos that are just sitting in the can waiting for somebody to finish the guitars on. I thought it'd be a great idea not only to put out an instrumental album and a vocal album at the same time, but I had about 6 instrumental songs and 6 vocal songs. And I thought, why don't I go back and add some more songs so they're full-length albums for both, which will be better should we actually kind of get a deal with one or both of those. And there's a guy that I won't mention who it is that's going to be shopping them for me, which is he's got a little bit of hookup. And it's not Joe, it's not Steve, he's a manager. But the point being, I do from time to time bury myself with more things to do, but the other thing about releasing an album and choosing how you're going to engage an audience, video is such a strategic way to do that, and the voice that you're going to have, the way you present yourself, does it feel like you're inviting people in the living room, or you would like, you may observe the show. It's one of the things that you want to be thinking about as you're potentially getting to go play live. It's like, I just need to rehearse my parts. So, as you're potentially playing live or shooting some video, I encourage you to watch stuff back. It's really great to kind of go, I did that? What was I thinking? And having some rules for yourself. It was very interesting. By the way, if any of you have not seen, hey Mario, what's going on? Boy, you're just going to pull me right into it. So, here's the thing. I try not to BS. I saw the G3 show in the San Francisco Bay Area at the Fox. After the show, I went backstage and I said to Steve, that is the best I've ever heard your sound. I mean, I've seen him play 20 times, bare minimum. Pretty much every rig. I didn't see Whitesnake, but Steve Vai and the Classified with Tommy Mars on keys. That band, holy cow. And a young Stu Hamm on bass. And then I saw him with Alcatraz, and I saw him with David Lee Roth, and I saw him, I didn't see him with Zappa, so that technically would be the earliest opportunity. And I've seen pretty much every G3 tour, a bunch of the solo tours, all the guitar camps, and witnessed various iterations of the rig. Literally was his guitar tech for a couple of shows. With kind of the dual SDE 3000s, the two Carvins. By the way, just for pisses and giggles, one of the things we're going to do almost undoubtedly inside the 360-degree guitar podcast is going to be a feature on rig formats and styles. And invariably, one of the rigs that I'm going to put together is the quote-unquote Vai rig. Little aside, but here we are talking about Steve Vai's stuff, so this is hopefully not too much of a rabbit trail. So basically, it's two identical heads, and you're coming out of the effect loop of the master head, going into whatever stereo unit you're using to get your split. I actually, Thomas was not able to come to one of the Satriani G4 experiences, so I kind of got a bunch of pedals that Thomas sent me of Steve's, and or they were waiting at the venue, and Thomas sent me the diagrams and we walked through, and I already knew this rig anyway, but I assembled basically a Boss driven version of Steve's rig, which was a CE. Melissa gave me, and rightly so, a hard time for how much I kind of ran off frame last time, but I'm doing it again. I can't resist, because I can't resist. So over here I can tell you which Boss course it was, because gosh darn it, it's right here. So yeah, there we go. And it was actually these two. I still have the delays. I'm coming back. Oh, now I'm not so sure. Uh-oh. Well, actually I've got photos of it, so I'll be able to tell. So basically, this is one of my favorite things to do, by the way. This is me having more fun. I don't think it was the CE3. I think it was the CH1. And so what happened was, this is basically where the stereo split happens. So you're coming in on this side, which is mono, and you're coming out on this side, which is stereo. So basically what happens is you then go out of one of the sides there into one of the delays. And this is actually the delay that Steve was using, and this is the other delay that Steve was using, and that was the actual chorus, because somebody had to take them home, and that somebody was me. And this is the other delay. So basically what that enabled us to do was to set up a dotted eighth and a quarter on either side. And so what you're doing then is you're coming out again out of the master head, going into the stereo chorus, splitting that, quote unquote, left and right. One delay goes to the power amp in / effects return on the master head, and the other one goes into the power amp in / effects return on the slave head. And the great thing about the way the Carvin Legacies are set up is that the master volume, and this is not always the case, quite often amplifiers will place the master volume after the effects loop. But the way the Carvin is set up, quite probably because of Mr. Vai's ingenuity, because this rig is dope, it enables you to control both sides from the master volume on the master amp. Flippin' A, it's so cool. Because usually, if it's post master volume, one of the things that's happening is you have to take into account the way the two amps are going to work together. And some amplifiers, when you just go into the power amp in, because they are post master volume, as is the case with the Legacies, you're on 10. So being able to control both loops, the volume going to the power amp of both loops from the master amp is a big deal, and that's why that rig works so well. You have a global control to bring stuff up and down, and it's in stereo, just a great sounding rig. There's some photos I've recently found that email from Thomas. There's a diagram, all of that. So the idea of copying that particular rig and recreating that so people can kind of understand that. So that is a true stereo rig in a couple of different ways. One is chorus is coming out of one side and not the other. Two, there are different delays, that is a dotted eighth and quarter note, coming out of the 2 amps. Let's just say I went in to the master head and I just had a splitter and I ran back into the power amp in of the master head and then the power amp in of the slave head. That would be dual mono. Matter of fact, it would be really kind of cool to use that particular pair of amps to demonstrate this. The point being is this video slash post, whatever you call such a thing when it's a podcast. I guess you call it this podcast is going to run through the different styles. There's just mono, dual mono, stereo. We will be doing wet, dry, wet. My favorite little one is to do wet, dry, dry, wet. I did it with these cabinets. So basically this guy, which hand am I lifting up? Holy cow, it's backwards. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 speakers there, and I changed the jacks on the back of those cabinets. So they're both stereo. So basically I've got effects, let's call that left and right, and in the center I've got 2 different speakers playing the direct signal. So technically the center is kind of a dual mono, and the far left and the far right are actually different iterations of wet. So it's kind of this strange hybrid. But what it means is you have you have a little bit more spread from the left to the right as you move around, such that you have the ability to have some flexibility on stage of where you're standing. So the sweet spot is a wider sweet spot. Getting back to Steve's current rig and the rabbit trail that we've gone down around the tone, one of the things I immediately noticed about the venue was it's not a great sounding venue for a rock band. There's a venue that I've played, I think, maybe just once. I played there opening for Schenker, and I think it was the last date of the tour, as I recall. And I really, really looked forward to playing this venue, and the audience was so drunk. I've never encountered a audience. I mean, they were slammed, because you kind of go out, to merch and kind of keep an eye. And if there's anybody there that that's showing up early, you want to be a gracious host and whatnot. But I just remember watching people show up slammed. I've never been to a concert where people were that drunk coming in. That's not slighting Michael. I was just kind of like, that particular venue, I was just like, whoa. And it's this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Art Deco venue. And I was so excited about playing there because it's so beautiful. And then you get inside and just kind of went, well, whatever it was designed for, it was great for. But rock and roll should never be played in this venue. It's just this cavernous thing. The stage sounds terrible. I mean, it was just everything about that gig was just not great sonically. It was really very, very hard. The venue didn't sound great front of house. Backstage didn't sound great. So to your point, Mario, I thought the sound actually, I felt, the interesting thing is that Jared James Nichols and I had this conversation. It was actually during one of his presentations at the Paul Gilbert Guitar Camp, where he was talking about, oh, by the way, sorry, before I forget, at the very top of the video, otherwise I will forget, I was doing my Sat Jam, this guy. That thing. That is this week's jam. It's in D. You can play minor pentatonic over it. It's mainly Dorian, but it goes to this little kind of what I would call, the flat 6 there for a minute. So it switches to D minor. If you want it, shoot me an email, DougDopplerMusic@gmail, and I will get that out to you. I will be creating an email list sooner than later. I just haven't done that yet. But it's a nice jam. Dig your teeth in. Have at it. All right. So, different players use different types of effects and different types of things. One of the things that Jared said is that, if you can get away without using delay in a live setting, you're probably going to have better clarity front of house. And I really thought about that a lot. And I'm a delay kind of guy. So you can hear a blend of delay and reverb there. I've kind of got a new setting on the Lexicon plugin that I use from Universal Audio in the console application. They're a little bit more pre-delay, a little bit longer reverb. But I like to blend this kind of blend. I like to blend this blend of delay and reverb so it kind of creates a little bit more ambience. I've got the room mic up now. But it's a matter of finding this right blend of delay and reverb and balance to your tones. So you kind of got a little bit of sauce on there when you want and need it, but not so much that when you go into a live venue, you're creating soup for the audience. And Jared's comment was very articulate. And if you go hear Jared live, you hear every note that he's playing. So that's kind of been bouncing around my head. So, there's a venue in... Two venues come to mind. We're going to rabbit trail on this point, but for those of us that play live, this matters. So here we go. In fact, I should probably do a podcast on everything I know about playing live. Note to self. So the Roseland Theater, Brad, if you're still hanging out here, is in Oregon, and it's in Portland, and it's basically a square cement box. And if you know a bit about acoustics, basically what that's going to create is a sea of standing waves. So the reflection in that room is kind of a thing, especially since the walls are actually made out of cement and the floor is it's kind of like a basketball court. I mean, it's a very, very live room. So the first time I played there with opening for Schenker, I opened for Schenker on 2 tours there. I used a bit more delay than I needed the second time I brought it down. Conversely, at the Baked Potato in Los Angeles, that entire room, every surface except for the tables, is covered with some sort of absorption. The room is dead. The second time I played there, I thought, I got this. I'm going to add more delay and reverb than I'm ever going to need. The room just ate it. It felt like I was dry as a bone. I was like, really? So the last time I played there was with this amp. And I kind of have started to figure out kind of what the right amount of delay and reverb is. That is to say, certain rooms where there's just a cavernous thing, sometimes you just kind of know that room is cavernous front of house, and you may or may not want to make some changes. I'm not Steve Vai, so I don't do his gig. I know that for me, if I were going in and playing that room, I probably would kind of go, this is one of those rooms, I'm probably going to dry it up a little bit, just so my guitar is going to penetrate a little bit better. But, again, sometimes that is a lot easier said than done. Note to self, and, I'm going to write this down, actually. Oh, don't disappear. Oh, come back. There we go. Playing live. Alternate presets. So if you can, have some alternate presets so you can just kind of know that they're dialed back a little bit. So if you get into a particularly live room or the baked potato, a particularly dead room, you can't get down and do a lot of deep editing in the moment. You actually have some presets set up so you're able to navigate that. All that to say, having seen Steve at the Fox where the sound was amazing, his guitar sound was the best I've ever heard. And, front of house at the Beacon was not nearly as good. And I'm not going to fault Mr. Vai with that. I'm going to say it's the venue, the way the sound was, and the guy that I was sitting next to felt just about the same at the venue level. So there was that. So in any case, I hope that wasn't too much of a rabbit trail. But the point being is, be really conscious. And first of all, those of us that play live with modelers, watch out. I need to include that in there as well. Oh boy. All right, so down the rabbit trail, I'm going to gently take the bait. Over there and over here, are some of my favorite speakers in the world. And these are the Celestion. There we go. These are the Celestion. This was an F12X200. Then there's the F12M150 that's sitting over there. And those speakers were specifically designed. This one's a little bit shallower. Because it's also a kind of got two cones for the price of one. There we go. Come on, Mr. Celestion. There we go. There's the light. But it's less deep, so it fits into more cabinets because it's, as you can see right there, well, it's less deep. So the point being, that is one of my go-to solutions if you're needing to have some sort of powered backline playing with a modeler. That said, one of the reasons I kind of ended up back playing boogies was I had a show opening for Neely Brosh in Los Angeles, and I kind of had this whole modeler set up. I had some great tones in the speakers, and then I put together that rig, and it sounded so different coming out of the rig using the Celestians than it did out of my near field monitors. That everything I had totally dialed, playing with the tracks. No fault of those, but it's just like when you're going from those different sound sources, different enclosures, and different things. What I really should have done was started there, dialed my tones in, and not started there. And every single one of the guitar camps that I see John Petrucci at, there's the world's greatest guitar players playing along, playing through fill in the blank modeler through the PA, and every time I'm just kind of going, John's sound, nothing against the guys, just eviscerates their sound. Just eviscerates it. You just kind of go, there it is. So kind of was one of my favorite thinking places. By the way, I encourage you to have a thinking place where you kind of go, this is where I go to solve my problems, because sometimes sitting in front of the speakers going, or going like, oh, I don't know. I take myself up to the shower, and kind of like my brain clears. There's no email. I'm not trying to bang my head against the wall, keep doing the same thing. I mean, you get a different result. But I kind of go, okay, I'm going to go to storage. I'm going to grab my pair of boogie cabinets. I'm going to grab the JP2C. I'm going to put the Axe FX in the loop. And 20 minutes later, once I grab those cabinets, I'm like, flippin' A. That was it. I was done. I'm just like, I've been playing boogies nonstop ever since. Ain't going back. Fractal's doing great stuff. The Def Leppard guys, I'm friends with their tech. I had my moment, 15 minutes at one of Joe's camps. I got a phone call or an email from, he unfortunately passed away, Mick Brigden, Joe's manager for so many years, an integral part of that camp. And he was like, hey, Phil Collin is going to be at the camp. Would you play second guitar on Hysteria? And I was like, yeah. So, and I used the Helix on that, although, I could easily do that with the Fractal as well. And, afterwards Joe was like, dude, it sounded just like the record. It was nuts. I mean, it's really, 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 really close. However, the Def Leppard guy, so I kind of, I don't know if Phil would remember me, but I become buddies with his tech, John Zacco. So he got me tickets and passes to one of the stadium shows, and they're using Fractal in a stadium arena environment, and the guitars were awesome because of all the problems that you have for people who play in small to medium-sized venues. It's a completely different thing when you're playing in a stadium. None of what you're playing on stage is ever going to be heard front of house. So the point being, or if it is, just barely. And so at that point, you've got a whole other series of paradigms that you got to figure out how, through a giant PA, you're going to make things sound great. For the rest of us, we're playing small to mid-sized venues, and we've got to figure out how we're going to make our modeler kind of sound like it does through these studio monitors through big speakers. And the great thing about the Celestion stuff is those work great, but you got to start there. The idea of kind of hanging out, I'm going to get a great sound with my studio monitors, and somehow I'm going to turn that up to 120 dB, and I'm going to kind of, make it work through something else. It's, that's, maybe you're smarter and luckier than I am. That's all I got to say about that. So, a little bit of a rabbit trail, but an important one, because getting your sound dialed live is a really, really important function for those of us that have got to go out and kind of figure out how we're going to make it happen. And I can assure you, when your tone is feeling like it's sucking, you're like, you just, flaccid would be a good word to describe the feeling of inspiration as a player. Flaccid. Never used that word in that description, but there we go. All right, good. All right. Oh, hang on a second. Yeah, so all that to say, that room was really hard on bass as well, and it was a hard room. So agreed. Joe's guitar was really clear, and that's the one thing about Joe's tone in particular, having seen him in every venue. And again, let me be really clear, I'm not slighting Mr. Vaught, but Joe's guitar sound is so dialed because the sound that's in Joe's head and the experiences that he's put together, because I literally saw the first show. I saw what I believe is the first show on the Surfing Tour. And a funny aside, so the guitar he's playing in the Satch Boogie video, it's the predecessor of the JS. It's got the 3 switches. I played that guitar, what I'm pretty sure is that guitar in his hotel room in San Diego, which is where that first gig was with when he started touring with Surfing. And as I recall, he was using a Silver Jubilee, the DS1, and a Tube Screamer. A Tube Driver, and believe it or not, a wah-wah. But I've also kind of watched the different iterations of rigs as that has happened. So, it's an interesting thing. Where he just naturally lives, because he is, until Chick spent less time recently in a vocal band. I would say his guitar sits a little bit more where a voice will sit. So as an end result, it has a little bit more, fills a little bit more of the space that I think those venues where the resonance is an issue become a bit of an issue. Haven't seen since way back when Ottman was still in the Bay Area. Nice. Old timers here. Love that. Spencer, practice and deliver more Beckons. Have a great weekend. Gonna watch the recording of this one. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure, Spencer. Thanks for sending that through. Christopher, each displays their personality and general tendencies on stage. Totally. And the thing that I love about Steve Vai, because, as I'm kind of figuring out what I'm going to do as we hopefully get out and start, touring properly, because that's big on my list. Watching Steve Vai and Joe Satriani, you probably are starting at the top of the pack and just kind of going, what do they do that really speaks to me as a fan, right? I love Steve. I was like, oh, I love that. What are the things that and I go back and watch some older video of some of the videos of the band. So we cut these songs, and because I had everybody in the same place at the same time, we then turned the studio into a set. Well, I've developed a lot as a performer since then, so it's really a little frustrating for me to go back and watch this and kind of going, oh man, I'm a lot better visually now than I was then, but you're like, that's what I got. So you deal with it. Oh, there we go. Okay, so happened in the pre-show Q&A before the G3 reunion show. Steve was center stage, and Joe and Eric were happy to fade to the side of the stage. Perfect precursor to how they manage their stage presence during the show. It's a very interesting thing, my band played a side stage at one of the G3s. I think it was the Ingve one. Not positive. So the Concord Pavilion was on the side stage, kind of as you entered through one of the entrances, kind of not right by the stage. But having, been a guest at one of those things, one of the things you want to be really conscious of, just like, and I watched, I can't name the artist, and it wasn't at the G3 thing, but it was this guy that's playing with this artist, and they were playing at the Dallas International Guitar Festival. And I watched the way the guy was upstaging the artist who's paying his bills. I'm just like, you're way too far forward on the stage, dude. Put your butt back there where you belong. And so, that idea of how far forward you are, how much you're moving from left to right, how much you're showboating when it's not your stage, and how much of a stage hog you are or not being. Doesn't matter what situation, whether it's with those guys or whoever it is, know your place on the stage. It's a really, really, really important thing. to be able to have that sense of when you come into a situation, when you get invited to sit in a situation like that, it's not the like, oh, my moment has arrived moment. It's just like, I am here to be the least important person on the stage. I know that. And it's important that the audience understands that sense of humility when you come into that situation. So you're just kind of going, holy cow. The other part of that is preparation. That's going to be one of the things that invariably I will talk about in the live performance thing. Because, there's certain things that I do when I know that there's going to be a sitting in thing, especially with guys like Joe, Steve, and Eric. At one point I'm kind of hanging out back by the amp. Literally, Joe kind of grabbed me by the arm and dragged me to the front of the stage. I would much rather be dragged by Joe than be at the front of the stage and have him give me a little elbow. My favorite moment wasn't soloing. And there's a photo of it. Where is that? This is my favorite moment. And it's captured in perpetuity, and it's not in this bunch, really? Oh, there it is. Hang on. Let's see if I can get to this without breaking anything. Invariably, I'll break something. But, so let's see. That's that. Who knows what it's going to go to? Oh, there it is. Well, you can see it. That's not the application I want. We want to get to preview. Let's believe that's going to be it. No. I don't know what rev amp that is, but that's a very cool looking rig. All right, hang on a second. So in preview, let's see if we can get over to, how about, oh, I can look at the name of the file. What are you? 08. There we go. Let's get to 08. 08, 08, 08, 08. There we go. So there we go. So the funny thing is, at one point, I kind of look around and I see Eric's not playing rhythm guitar. I see Steve's not playing rhythm guitar. And I see Joe's not playing rhythm guitar. And I'm playing with Brian and Kenny. I'm the only rhythm player. And the funny thing is, about that moment, I have this realization. Joe kind of looks over me and gives me this kind of, my dad's gone. So like, he gives me this kind of dad like smile, and just kind of like, it was kind of like, you're doing good, kid. It was really, that was the moment for me. I was just like, ultimate, and so that's, ultimately, if you go into a situation where I'm there to serve, I was so engrossed with doing the best job I could do playing rhythm guitar in that moment that all of a sudden there wasn't a need for other people to play. And there are other situations where I purposely turn the guitar off because you don't need to, that everybody doesn't need to be playing. Most of the time I'm off, and it just happened to be, I was probably thinking, should I be turning off? And all of a sudden I was like, no, I'm the only one playing. Oh, okay. And so that's where that preparation going into a moment like that, you're like, I know what I'm doing. And yeah, it's just in the place. When you can, please address this Satch question. Why does Satch teach that you must learn every note on the fretboard? What does that knowledge enable you to do? Oh, bring it on. Thank you so much. So, boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, my sweet favorite spot. I put it on standby. I can do this without it. So, it's a great question. So, one of the things that I do in my guitar insanity is I lie in bed, C, E, G, D, F, A, E, G, B, F, A, C, G, B, D, A, C, E, B, D, F, C, E, G, C, E, G, B, D, F, A, C, E, G, B, D, F, A, C, E, G, B, D, F, A, C, E, G. I'm also trying to get to the point where I can go G, E, C. Oh boy, I'm getting stage fright. G, E, C, A, F, D, B, G, E, C, A, F, D, B, G, E, C, A, F, D, B, G, E, C. So that's the triads 5, 3, 1. Once you actually understand what's happening with the notes, so say for example, I play an A minor chord, and if I just know it's an A, C, and an E, I can go, okay, A, C, and E. I can go A, C, 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 E. So the point being is when that chord's happening, so I'm able to identify and connect my knowledge of the chords, minor chord, in the key of C major, whose notes are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, C, E, G, D, F, A, E, G, B, F, A, C, G, B, D, A, C, E, B, D, F, C, E, G. That is the 1, 3, and 5 starting off the first degree of the C major scale, C, D, E, F, G, C, E, G, starting off the second degree, D, E, F, G, A, D, F, A, starting off the third degree, E, F, G, A, B, E, G, B, starting off so on and so forth. C, E, G, D, F, A, E, G, B, F, A, C, E, G, B, D, F, A, C, E, G, so on and so forth. So once you're able to identify what those notes are inside the chords, and you play, this is one of the interesting things. I kind of, one of my favorite exercises that I've done a really crappy job as a teacher of not making people do is this exercise. It's just the alphabet of chords. You're playing through the musical alphabet, playing open position, A major, B major, C major, D major, E major, F major, G major, and A major chords. But the thing about it is the right hand, and it's called a chord relay because it's intended to be played just like music with an even tempo. The right hand is targeting and isolating whatever bass note, fifth string, fifth string, fifth string, fourth string, sixth string, fourth string, sixth string, fifth string, as it's muting between the chords, whatever that is, such that we are used to whatever chord progression. Whatever strings you're wanting to target and isolate, this is actually teaching you to do, but also being able to go, that's 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, which means it's A, E, A, C sharp, and E. This is 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, just like this was. And that's B, F sharp, B, D sharp, F sharp. And this is 1, 3, 5, 1, 3. And that's C, E, G, C, E. So when you actually know the notes, dare I say, my dear friend, you know the notes. So my favorite thing is that the guys at Freebird, when they were playing Freebird, weren't going G, 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 F, D, F, D, sorry, F, G, F, D, G, F, D, G, G, B flat G, B flat G, B flat G, so on and so forth. They were playing shapes, and those shapes have a sound. One of the great things about the guitars, we just memorize the sound of the shapes. But when we actually know what's happening in the background, as in G, B flat, C, D, F, G, B flat, C, D, F, G, B flat, we then kind of have much greater insight into, I don't know, like a G minor bar chord, G, D, G, B flat, D, and G. So as I target that G, B flat, and D, I have much greater insight into terms of how I can connect my theory, how I can connect my shapes, and I connect the things that I'm doing by ear and kind of go, why did that? Oh, I'm going 1, flat 3, 4, 5, 5. And we have a language to be able to describe that no matter what key. And we're in, like, I don't know, B flat. So to answer your question, the most articulate way I can do that is that most guitar players don't have a methodology for determining the flats or the sharps as they're moving up and down in a common key. The short version of that is if you're moving a half step or a whole step in one direction or another, it's the next immediate scale degree number and the next immediate note name. So if we're at B flat and we're moving a step and a half above there, it's what I like to describe as either a step and a half or a half and a step. And in any case, if this is some sort of B note, we've moved more than a whole step. So this is going to have to be some sort of D note. In this case, it's a D flat. So having an understanding of how the notes work and then kind of being able to map it out, B flat, D flat, E flat, F, A flat. So the same thing is true. If I can identify that my B flat minor triad is B flat, D flat, and F, I can begin to target B flat, D flat, and F. I don't know about you, but I end up in a flippin' wacky key like B flat. Oh, I'm sorry. Like I said, I ended up in C there. Back in C. I need all the help I can flip and get. B flat is a crazy key, but the ability to go, all right, I'm looking for B flat. It's not C, it's B flat. The other thing it helps us do is get what I refer to as pattern on stock. It's a great question, by the way. I'm not, if I'm being kind of like a little animated in my response is because it's one of the best questions that you could ask me, because it all this stuff is so near and dear to my heart, because I watch guitar player after guitar player get stuck in the A minor pentatonic, and they end up in a key like B flat and kind of go, everything's in the wrong place, and they don't have a methodology for being able to outwork it, other than like, I don't know, I just have to learn to see these patterns, a fret higher. But that's hard. There's nothing friendly about the, I've said this, the key of B flat minor pentatonic. But I'm just going to say playing the B flat minor pentatonic. It's not friendly. You don't have any open strings to work with. It's just kind of a pain in the butt. But once you develop some strategies for a hard key like that, other keys start to get a lot easier. So it's like, all right, I'm just looking for my B flats. If I can find my B flats, then I'm kind of... I'll now have a way to work, I can now navigate the entire neck, and I'm not having to go, all right, I kind of connect pattern number 1 to pattern number 2, pattern number 2 to pattern number 3. That's a great way to get there if you need to get there, but this is a lot more efficient. So having that connection where, if you think about a stream of consciousness, and I asked, and Joe's teaching has changed a little bit over the years, as anybody's. I asked him at one of the guitar camps, something about the modes and the formulas. He said, "Oh, they're just sounds." I can tell you, 15-year-old Doug Doppler, he never said there's just sounds. And sometimes I think, because he knows how much I enjoy the theoretical side of it. And mind you, this is the guy that rapped my knuckles for 3.5 hours on the way to Chicago harmonizing the harmonic minor scale. 1, 3, sharp 5, right? And that's going to be G, B, D sharp. 1, flat 3, 5, A, C, E. 1, 3, 5, B, D sharp, F sharp. 1, 3, 5, C, E, G. Sharp 1, 3, 5, also equivalent to 1, flat 3, flat 5. That's going to be D sharp, D sharp, F sharp, A. E, G, B, F sharp, A, C. G, B, D sharp. The point being is, he'd still be rapping my knuckles. Augmented, minor, major, major, diminished, augmented. The point being is that, the ability to be able to walk through and actually know what those notes are, even if you're not super fast at it, you know what's going on at the note level. So you're able to do different things. So the idea of working through, so you begin to, that's basically 1, 3, 5, 3, 5, 1, 5, 1, 3. 1, flat 3, 5, flat 3, 5, 1, 1, flat 3, 5, flat 3, 5, 1, 1, flat 3, 5, 5, 1, flat 3. So being able to kind of recognize GBD, BDG, GBD, DGB. Being able to get comfortable enough where you can describe what's going on so you know what's going on. You just have a liquidity with the note names that will ultimately serve you as you're playing music. Great question. Chris Alexander, Ray is a great addition to Joe's band. He sure is. Tom, why do you need to know every letter in the alphabet? It's becoming crystal clear how to precisely make that point. Well, here's the thing. Hey, Scotty, what's going on, my man? Great to see you. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. So, here's the thing. Carlos Hernandez. Hello, mi buen amigo. ¿Cómo está? Look at that photo, you rock star. The reality is, much of the time when I'm playing music, I'm not thinking about the note names. I'm doing that same thing. I'm like, because I play by the shapes and I do all the things that as a pentatonic bass player coming up that I would do. But when I need to go, hey, that's 1, 5, 6, flat 7, flat 7, 7, 1, as I'm kind of walking up, as I'm looking, thinking about how things are functioning, That's a 5 chord. That's going to be A, G, and C sharp. So when I need to kind of open up the hood and understand it, I can. But that's not to say that I don't use shapes like every other guitar player in the world. But one of the things that I'm working on with one of these courses is actually just going. So I was playing grooves in the three notes going G, B flat, C, D, F, G, B flat, C, D, F, B flat, G, F, D, C, B flat, G, F, D, C. That's going backwards, B flat, G, F, D, C, B flat, G, F, D, C. That kind of took my brain for a little bit of a ride. I'm like, oh. But the idea is I want to get fluent with the note names because that's going to ultimately have a better idea of like, hey, you know what? If I'm looking for the 5 and I'm playing in G's my tonal center, well, that's going to be G, B flat, D. And I know that that's going to be a D. So my ear, my brain, my fingers are going to get more tuned by the knowledge of the note names. So it's going to allow me when I'm playing in a blues setting where it's not really thinking about the notes to be when I need to be a little bit more attuned to it. And the other thing is the more I can kind of let that stuff sink into the groove. If I happen to, hey, we're jamming in B flat. Then I know that's going to be my B flat. That's going to be my E flat. And that's going to be my F. If I can't calculate where to play those bass notes, I'm just like, oh, I think it's at the 6th fret. And then, oh, holy cow. I am... I don't normally go. All right. Hey, Tim, what's going on, Rockstar? So cool to hear these full circle stories. Thank you so much. Great to see you, my friend. Hello, hello, hello. Not a wah-wah, but a won't. Oh, that's very funny. I love that. Hey, Eric, what's going on? Always a pleasure, my friend. That's hilarious. That's funny. Bruce, you can't tell the story publicly, but it's been 13 days now since April Fool's. Got you again. Oh, my word. No, I can't tell that story publicly. But that's my buddy Bruce, a worship musician who I have been thankfully working for, gosh, I don't even know how long. But he got me the best April Fool's. It was just, he got me better than, oh, man. But the good news is he can't ever get me better than that. So, Shane, eye contact and smile, but I'm an intense musician. I can't worry about looking like a grumpy old man on the platform. I love that. I am looking forward to seeing Steve on the Beat Tour and Joe with Hagar. So we just bought our tickets. The Beat Tour, I think, happens while we're in Australia locally, and we bought tickets to go see the Joe with Hagar. That is kind of like, I can't miss that. And I would be presumptuous to go, hey, Joe, you know, me and a million other people that you've heard from and haven't heard from for your entire life want free tickets. I'm like, I don't do that. Mario, what do you think went wrong with Joe's rig? I was impressed how well he sounded straight in the head. Right? So the wah one went down. So so the short answer is, where is my big bad wah? It's floating around here. So that wah is a little bit out of production, and apparently those wahs are starting to fail. So they've got like 12 of them, but the wah just completely failed. He said, you know, what's interesting, usually it fails mid wah wah, but in this, I'm probably telling more than I should, but so it you know, but in this particular case, it failed when it was off. So that's kind of what happened. And yeah, it sounded great going straight into the rig. You know, with the amount of, you know, stuff that he's got on his rig on the pedal board without a switcher, you know, it's amazing how similar it sounded front of house. You know, because Joe's using in-ears now, my guess is it sounded much more dramatic in his cans than it did for those of us front of house. But he totally championed on. And yes, you know, a great amp going straight into it should sound great. And he sure did. Anthony, I love you dearly. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you. Much appreciated. What do you use? Boy, I'm a little bit behind you. What do you use to split your signal into different amps? Great question. So this is one of the I can't talk about this little video series that I'm working on yet, but sooner than later we'll be able to. But one of them is going to be around rigs. The rig that I used for the Neely Brosh show was the JP2C that you can't see that's sitting over there. In turn, I came out of that. I was using that pair of boogie cabinets behind me. I was coming out of the JP2C. I was using a cab clone IR to take a tap. That's got cab clone, but it was the version that preceded cab clone IR. So you're not able to change out the IRs, and that's essentially a kind of a glorified filter. So it was a little bit further back in the technology for boogie. So I used cab clone IR to take a feed off the power amp / speaker out, and in turn I ran that out into the Fractal. I think I was using the AxeFX 3. It's in the bottom of this rack right here. Come on. There you go, right there. And in the back of big boy over there, the big rack over there, it's a Seymour Duncan Power Stage 700. So if 350 watts per side doesn't get the job done, you got worse problems than I do. Into those two cabinets, and the rig was thunderous. I was like, it's, the Mark 7 has become my amp. The Petrucci amp, by design, the clean channel is intended to be stiffer than the one that's on here. This isn't totally set for this, but oh, hang on, let me turn the mic off. I think I may have been peaking a little bit on input there, so I apologize for that. Hang on. I know I'm going to be a little bit hot there with the room mic, but it's like that amp, unlike the JP2C, John plays in Dream Theater. When he goes to a clean sound, he's got a compressor if he wants to loosen things up a little bit. But there's so much sound going on with the band, his clean tone, especially with the types of things John's playing compositionally. You don't want the sag that I live for on a clean channel. I want that amp to kind of give up the ghost a little bit. That little bit of give where the power amp's going, okay. But that amp is just magic for me. And it's not totally dialed the way I had it for my clean sound, but that'll get the job done close enough. But it's a very, very special amp for me. Okay. So, just the course. So to answer your question, in a live setting, I pretty much never use chorus. There is a box that's here that's a Leslie that I will be using into the front end of whatever. But traditionally what I use is that I'll have a stereo reverb where the reverb in a live setting, this is one of the other thing about rig styles. Great question. I have a tendency to create the split at the delay, and then the delay, in many instances, goes in series. The two delays feed into two sides of a reverb. So the stereo delays will in turn be going into a stereo reverb, where the reflection is a little bit different on the left and the right, just slightly. But when you add two different delays with different delay times, they become even more accentuated because of the differences between the two. So in that sense, and I have to double check that when you run a mono signal into a stereo delay, is it truly stereo? Because sometimes there'll be some modulation in, well, if there's modulation inside the reverb, chances are it's going to cause some difference between the left and the right side. But I don't know for a fact how much that changes it. And if there's no modulation, is it then kind of dual mono, but just with reverb on it that happens to be a stereo reverb coming out of two different things? That is to say, if I run one guitar amp into two cabinets, I'm not in stereo. I'm not really even in dual mono. It's just one amp into two cabinets. If the cabinets are different, or the speakers are different, then that is a stereo signal, because what's coming out on the left and on the right is different. All that stuff will be explained more clearly than that in a video. But basically, what I do is my split, I don't tend to have a tendency much of the time to use reverb live, because there's already reverb in the room. Generally speaking, based on what I mentioned about James Nichols, I'm like, if I can get away without using reverb, I probably will. But it depends on situations. Sometimes I'll use it because I feel like it. How about that for an answer? Especially in a venue where I know there's not a super live, cavernous sort of a sound. But I'm not using modulation other than maybe adding a little bit of modulation to the delay and to the reverb. So it's got a little bit of modulation. Great question. Hello, Tanisha. I hope you're doing great. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the show. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in. All right. Interested to hear tricks on how the guys in the 80s used their delays and reverbs on high gain amps without effects loops. So here's the thing. By the time the 80s rolled around, everything had effects loops. So that was already done. It's a great question. One of the questions that I've got to figure out for some of the material that I'm working on is Boogie was one of the very, very first amps out there to put an effects loop in there. There are some folks that they say they were the first. There are some folks that have said that Orange was the first. I need to do a little bit of effects loop archaeology and figure out for a fact who it was that was the first person to put in an effects loop in an amplifier. Regardless, there are other ways to get that job done. No, it's over here. Let me grab one of those ways. And actually what I just mentioned there, and this is something that has been in the works for a while. This is one of the things they did with Eddie's ring. So this is a SIR box that basically allows you to take the output from the amp, the speaker out, and this will be in one of the rigs that we're going to put together. And then you take basically you've got the through for the speaker, so you're actually still running a speaker, but then what you've done is you've taken a tap that you can, I've got it wrong. Speaker through. Speaker goes in here, speaker goes out there. From the amp. The speaker output of the amplifier. That's easier for you to do than me. Speaker output jack goes into here. The output goes into the speaker cabinet, so this amp is always seeing a load. But this little cable right here goes out, and that goes into your effects. So now what you've got is the ability to drive that with a level control. This doesn't control the volume of the amp. Controls the level of the signal going out to your outboard gear, and that in turn goes out into, let's say, a stereo delay or a stereo reverb, or stereo delay and stereo reverb, quite often sitting instead of series, one going to the other in parallel. And that's going to also be in this demo stuff that we're going to go through. And the idea is that you're then putting that potentially into a mixer, and that in turn will go out into a stereo power amp potentially, and that'll either go out into two different cabinets, or sometimes I'll use one cabinet that's a stereo cabinet and have a left and right in the cabinet. The Neely gig, what I did was I came out of the head, I came out into the cab clone IR, which is hiding Where's Cabclo and I are hiding? It's over here. Came out into this. So this is a reactive load box, but since it's a boogie head and a boogie cab clone IR and boogie's close by, I'm like, you know what? I can do this. So basically we ran out the JP2C into this. That gave me a reactive load, which is very, very important to keep some sort of load on the head. That in turn went out into the Axe Effects mono in, split that left and right into the Power Stage 700 that's hiding over there, into those two boogie cabinets. 7 times 4 is 280 watts. So technically, that power amp is rated for more wattage than those cabinets. But those cabinets, I didn't need to turn up to the point where I was running 350 watts per side. But I was loud. I was really loud. I was nicely loud. I like nicely loud. And the tone was just savage. Kind of like Eddie meets Boogie. It was really just kind of like, oh. It just makes you want to play and kind of makes it easy to play. Great question. So there will be, in theory, a video I'm going to do with the Boss guys. They were kind enough to send up the SDE 3000 box, the EVH version, that we're going to build in a wet, dry, wet rig. And it's highly probable over there is a Jose modded Marshall. Jose was one of the people that worked on Eddie's amps, and that amp is fire. But we'll probably build a wet, dry, wet rig using that amp, and it's going to be nuts. Brad, I've been there. So if I repeat myself, I apologize. And I still see some more questions, and I've got to kind of... Chris, hey, good morning. Steve Greenleaf, hello. Not enough coffee yet. Great to see you, my dear friend. All right, good. There we go. EFBC note location exercise. Oh, you guys are having too much fun. Hey, Vince, it was great to see you at the show, my friend. What a pleasure. Awesome. I have the big bad wah. It's a great wah. Yes. Best passive splitter, the Layla P split. Sonia, I would have to agree with you. This box is awesome. Right there with you. Oh boy, all this crazy gear. So, hang on. Let me. I just need to scroll down for just a second to let everybody know I'm attempting to catch up. All right, let me just Okay. First of all, thanks for hanging out. We're going a little long today. Normally I'm going to be doing an hour show, but today I'm not. Okay, so yes, the venue is a big deal. I know this is true of many venues, including churches. I play bass in a church. They almost always put me in a location that the bass dominated. I was told I made the pages of people's Bibles flap. I love that. So the short version of that is as follows. I was doing a thing in Canada, and it's really funny because I was up on the stage. I was playing at a church. I'm playing bass, and I just happened to be in the corner. So for those of you that have had a home stereo, a home stereo system with a subwoofer, where do you put the subwoofer? You put it in the corner, because what happens is corners have this great way of amplifying bass throughout the room. So I'm in the corner with this bass amp, and the sound man is just, and I don't know if you're supposed to say sound person these days. I'm not that fluent, but it was a sound man. So this poor soul was losing his mind. You know it's bad when you see them coming at the stage and the smoke's literally coming out of the ears. Just like I was like, disproportionate amount of emotion for, I'm just up here, I'm a guest, I'm playing bass, I'm a guest. Just like only a sound person can do. And unbeknownst to me, I was in that perfect spot where everything about the bass was amplified and broadcast in the entire venue. So your location. So something about that corner just reflected like a megaphone the bass. So it's just like I learned something important. It's like there are going to be certain places where you can place things that they're going to make a lot of sound. Brad, you kindly gave me. The unfortunate thing is they've moved the speakers. I don't mean to be a bad dude. You gave me this great box that's basically kind of it channels and then diffuses the sound for my old iPhone. They moved where the speakers are in the new iPhone, and the box unfortunately doesn't work, unfortunately, nearly as well, which is a bummer. But the point being is it used to be for the old model, it would kind of channel down into this thing, and then the sound would diffuse beautifully. Kind of, I still have it upstairs in my bathroom because it allows you to hear music at a great volume in the shower. I love that. So the ability to how you manipulate sound is a big deal. One of my favorite things to do, well, first of all, in addition to the same psychology of an open back cabinet where it's kind of filling the stage with the sound from behind, also bouncing off the back wall and coming out, is actually facing a cabinet towards the back wall. It's a great way to actually play with some additional stage volume that you're not subjecting every to. You're bouncing that sound onto the back wall, and that's diffusing as it reflects forward. It's a great way to get a lovely wash. But yeah, you got to be careful, especially with bass, of where you place it and and how is it being reflected. Yes, he did have the 2/3 power amps and the one Marshall on stage. And what I haven't found out is what the difference is between the two different third power amps, other than the badging. So that is a mission that I am on, and we'll leave it there. Okay. You guys are having too much fun. It's a great question. So let's see if I can do this in a way that I can do it with integrity. I think I could safely say if I had a choice of studying with Joe Satriani or GIT, I'd pick Joe Satriani every day of the week. That said, I had an amazing experience at GIT. It was great to live in Los Angeles, get a feel for that city. It was great to be around a lot of other guitar players playing day and night. My whole thing was that I would sneak. Well, it wasn't even sneak. I'd go down to the school. Basically, I would go down. I think I would start at about 11, maybe 10 o'clock. That's when all the other kind of I'm going to play until about 10, and I'm going home to sleep. That's those folks. I would my first classes, rather than starting at the 8 a.m. class, I'd start with like the 10 a.m. class, so I could then go in and jam for 2 or 3 hours at night. So literally, pretty much every night I was in there. They had these really cool PV amps, and I would play for hours at ridiculous volume, not disturb anybody, and really just play because that's what I did. And so that experience was great. At that point, GIT was still in the transition of being a fusion school, and literally the second 6 months. No, actually, it wasn't even the second 6 months I was there. When I got ready to leave was when Paul Gilbert showed up. And so Paul and I hung out a little bit. That's where I first met Paul. He invited me over to his apartment. So, I've known Paul since I think he was 16. And, he was scary great then. Just obscene how great that guy is on guitar. So that experience of, again, meeting somebody like Paul Gilbert, who's somebody I've known for decades and decades and decades, and being in that environment is very valuable. But they actually have... if Chris Colombo is still here, they suffer from what I call pentatonicitis, where this, it's kind of one of the things that with this strange marriage between the cage system and the pentatonic, and then building modes around these 5 shapes, which just to me was just... I was like, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes in the major scale, but you're really playing kind of strange variations of 5 mode shapes, really based on the 5 patterns of the minor pentatonic that are kind of lined up with the cage system. I'm just like, does not compute. Now, interestingly enough, Matteo Sasato is a cage guy, one of the greatest guitar players walking the earth. So obviously, he knows something that I don't. But for my POV, caged again, it's 5/7 of the real deal. The ability to again kind of craft things diatonically. 1 3 5 1 5 3 5 1 5 3 5 1 3 5 1 3 5 1 5 3 5 1 5 3 5 5 1 3 5 GBD ACE B D F sharp C E G D F sharp A E G B F sharp A C G B D. That's just kind of not in the stream of consciousness without that. With that, you're kind of playing things. There's my C shape, my A shape, my my G shape. I'm actually working on getting that shape dialed There's my C. There's my A shape. There's my E shape. There's my, sorry, that's my G shape, E shape, and my D shape. There's value to that, but the thing about, I'd much rather take the C shape and go, well, there's my 1 3 5 3 5 1 and 5 1 3, and go major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, major, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, major, and major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, major. That is to say, out of this nested cage thing, out of this one, I'm taking again 1 3 5 3 5 1 5 1 3, and using that to build triad chords in root position, first inversion, and second inversion. And in that instance, Cage gave me something that's been staring at me for years that I never saw. But that's not usually how Cage is employed, and it's kind of this strange kind of thing. Lindy, a guitar buddy of mine, described it as scaffolding, which is not it's not a nice term. So I can, we'll leave it there. So in terms of being prepared, I spent a lot of time in the decades since GIT. First of all, getting very comfortable with the scale degree numbers. And then once I realized, you know what, scale degree numbers are relative. That is, say, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry, let me give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for G, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for A, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for E. But if I don't know this is G, B, D, A, C, E, B, D, F sharp, C, E, G, and A, C sharp, E, oh boy, A, C sharp, E, B, D, F sharp, oh my word, I'm not so good in the key of A with my triads. A, C sharp, E, B, D, F sharp, C sharp, E, G sharp, D, F sharp, A. Oh boy, I need to spend some time there, as well as E, G sharp, B, F sharp, A, C sharp, G sharp, B, D sharp, A, C sharp, E. I knew that there was a journey of understanding. The thing about scale degree numbers is they're relative. You can move them around from key to key. The note names are absolute, so I've really kind of been working on getting better at E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. So I'm fluent in different keys. Putting the triads together for the key of A and the key of E, I'm obviously not as fluent as, so got a little bit of work to do there. But the point being is that GIT kind of let whoever in could afford to go there. There were some people that shouldn't have been there because they weren't ready. But it's hard being a school. You've got investors whose needs you have to meet as well. So there's a balance between all of that. And it was a great experience, and I wouldn't trade it in for the world. It was great. Great question, my friend. Vince, again, great to see you at the show. It was really nice catching up. Pleasure to see you. Mario, with great pleasure. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And with pleasure. I mean, here's this is one of my favorite. What are we doing? So my buddy Mason from Vertex, very wisely, because it's just such a cool thing to do, has his group of Bay Area players. We get together on Fridays. I go about once a month, but every Friday he's it's like herding cats. He sends out an invite. There's this really cool WhatsApp group of us, and we kind of talk about all things guitar. And we get together and talk about cool things about music and pedals and all that. Well, I get to do that here. I mean, it's just like I have all my guitar buddies here, and we talk about gear and gigs and all of that. I mean, like, what else would I be doing besides, looking at my P-split and, so all this is just an extension of the conversation I'm already having with myself, except it doesn't look like I'm a crazy person wandering around just going, oh, I love that. Like, why'd they do that? So, Stefano, bonjour, my good friend Brooks, great to see you. Hello. Brooks, you are the best. I take it you got my post. Sean, look forward to being in touch, by the way. Sean, always a pleasure. Hello, New England. So that is a great question. Bobby, boy, hold on. That's a great question. Hang on. rigs. Surbox. Great question. I love that. And I love that you have the humility to ask, Bobby Valdez. It's a great question. So the answer to that is because it is a non-load bearing device. That is to say, it's just a through box. So it's not like cab clone IR, which actually puts a load on there. So the nuance to all of this is a great question and a great can of worms that you've opened. I'm a boogie endorser. If by using cab clone IR, there's some meltdown in the power amp section of the JP2C, I can probably take my amp up to boogie, and as a boogie endorser, they just might fix my amp for free. That's not most people. I get that. And I'm not going, oh, I'm special. That's not what I'm saying. And the other thing is, because it's a boogie amp and boogie's reactive load box, I do so with 100% confidence. I'd say 99.99% confidence that nothing is going to happen. In that, it's tested technology, it's marketplace technology, it's worked flawlessly for me. That said, this right here, hang on a second. Hang on. Yeah, don't knock anything over. No timber moments here. There we go. Come with me, my little friends. Come with me. So I got one of the first, that was just a box. That wasn't anything breakable. That was tops. That wasn't anything breakable either. This right here is a high-powered twin. A high-power twin. And that amp used to belong to Keith Richards. Used to belong to Joe Satriani. It's in the lending library of a buddy of mine. That amp is worth an obscene amount of money. The last thing I'm going to do with that amplifier and its original output transformer is connect a reactive load box. Because if I blow that amp because I turn it way up using a reactive load box, it's really bad. For historic reasons, for abuse reasons. That is, I took a risk with somebody's amp. That's not okay. This type of a box, the Sir box, is great. There are a couple of devices that are like this on the market. This is a great one. They're also my kind of default ones. You can see them back here. The 2 notes boxes will also do the same thing. So this is the cab M Plus. And the regular cab M, you can update the firmware so it becomes a cab M Plus. So this allows you to also basically take a throughput from the amplifier. So this is a conversation I had yesterday with a guy whose name I won't mention yet, but he was involved on the, over there is another high power twin, which is one of the reissues. Without getting too close, I won't mention this person had an affiliation with that amplifier. We'll just leave it there. So that amplifier, the thing about these amps is you got to turn them up. And so the conversation I had with my buddy yesterday was about, you know, not using a reactive load box, but I've got over here, and we'll be doing a video on this. It's an amp. It's an isolation box from the folks at Mojo Tone. It's a 212 box, so it's perfect for these types of amps where you run it in and you turn the amp up, but it's actually running to an actual amplifier, so it has an actual speaker as the load. So you're not creating some sort of reactive load. You're putting a real speaker there, and on the way to that speaker cabinet, you got a device that's just taking a tap, and then you're able to run that and load an IR and bring that into your DAW. So you're not putting any sort of pressure or you're not doing anything other than just kind of going, hey, I got the speaker out, putting a little box here, that's going into a speaker cabinet. I'm just taking a tap off of that. And so that, you can use it with a tube amp, you can use it with a solid state amp, and that's a great question. And I've made a note of that, so I appreciate your asking that. The pink guitar. Are there any digital power amps that I like? That's a great question. So yes, I have, and those are going to be the subject of videos as well. There are. That's one of the things. I've gone sliding shelf happy. So there's one, and hiding over here is the other one. So those are two of the 100 watt. No, it's Velcroed in. Power Stage 100. No. 200. What are you? These are the Power Stage. What the hell are you? It's one of the Power Stage power amps. There it is. It's a 170 watts. And then I have the 100 watt stereo, and then I have the 700 watt one. I also am going to be doing not enough to do. I'm going to be doing an IR library, and I bought a matrix power amp for that, and that is a high-powered, zero coloration, supposedly power amp that I bought specifically for that purpose. And so that just is going to live here, doesn't go out in a rack and go get played live. That just kind of is a studio piece of gear. So they are great digital power amps. One of the rigs that I'm going to potentially build around the Mark 7 here, I'm trying to get my friends at Boogie to kind of loan me a Boogie power amp for, because I want to be able to stay within the Boogie ecosphere, if you will, when building some rigs using that amplifier. So I'm going to potentially borrow a Boogie tube power amp for that, because that's kind of been their jam. They don't currently have a power amp in production, but out of respect for that relationship, that's going to be the case. I really, really have been exceedingly impressed with the Seymour Duncan Power Stage series. They are great power amps. I've had zero issues, played them stupidly loud, and lived to tell. I'm still reeling from the Golden Bachelor breakup. Okay, I missed a piece of this, so fill me in so I'm not feeling, I guess the Power Stage 700, yes. Jerry, that blew up like a bomb at Oppenheimer. Oh, my word. Peritonitis, a closely related malady to G disease. I love you, Chris. You know that. Oh, that's awesome. Vince, hello again. Likewise. Awesome. Yes, Brett, hey, great to see you again, my friend. Yes, the Boogie repair, the whole thing about Boogie is great. So here's the thing. You guys are saying hi. There we go. This is an interesting conversation. So let me see if I can give you the very short version. Did it make it down here? I was sure I brought it down here. Yes, I did. I had an experience, and I'm going to show you how that experience impacted me. I am a rack shelf fanatic. I have, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 sliding rack shelves. 2 of which are drawers and the others aren't. So this product, if you take a look at this, if you've ever bought and sold anything on Reverb, this came from Amazon, by the way. If you take a look, there are these little boots on the corners of this box. And then there's kind of the tie. Oh, this one lost the other tie, but it would have had a tie like this. And then there again, it's got the boots on either side. And inside here, there are additional boxes for these 2 shelves, and they came as pairs because you got this righteous deal, and they're from China. They are really well crafted. The packing, unlike a number of the products, including ones that I had 2 or 3 that I had to return because they were damaged in shipping, These folks, unlike a number of the things that I've kind of seen show up from China, really cared. And I was like, changed my mind. That is to say, my general good, bad, or in between opinion of gear manufactured in China is like, the cheaper they can do it and get it out the door, the better. Matt King, what's going on, my man? I am going to stay away from that topic because I'm going to. So I have a camper over there. I have an Axifex. I have the Quad Cortex. The Quad Cortex is the only one that I will talk about boogie profiles because they have a deal where they've kind of done some licensing. Other than that, I don't touch that. Sorry, my dear friend. If there's anybody I'd answered for, it would be you. Matt, always a pleasure. Thanks for jumping in. Great guitar player, in case you guys don't know. Matt King. All right, so the thing is that to manufacture, so let's have a heart to heart, and then I gotta get ready for my first lesson of the day. This shirt, actually, from my buddy Matty, chances are this shirt was manufactured in China. Chances are most of the pieces of gear that I look around and see are manufactured in China. There was a period of time that the cars we drove, the clothes we wore, the products we used were manufactured in the United States. And we paid more for them because of the unionization, but they employed Americans. Fact. We have basically, by being cheap, fill in the blank, chased away our job market and said, we'd rather buy stuff for cheap than employ Americans. It's bad math, but we're cheap. So the Chinese very gleefully kind of went, hey, you want cheap? We know how to do this. And so what's happened is they've got a few million people that will work for pennies on the dollar, and the manufacturing cost to have it manufactured in China with laborers of, per that box, a range of skill sets, because I was kind of like, that changed my attitude about China. And a lot of the gear, great gear that's here, is manufactured or put together and manufactured in China. But it comes at a premium, usually with quality. So Clark, great to see you. Hello. So we basically sabotaged our own economy and our own job market because we like to shop at Walmart or Home Depot or whatever it is that is our, or Amazon. Guilty as charged. Rinky Dinky. I'm an Irish capitalist. I only buy American guitars if I can help it. Martin Fender Gibson, I support American jobs. Thank you. Here's the thing. There's so much stuff here that's from China. It's not like I'm like some innocent party in all of this, but we kind of did a lot of damage to our own economy because we just didn't have a bigger picture, and people made decisions. And I'm not like this. Oh, they did this. It's like it happened with people that have more money than I'll ever see in my lifetime. They made a series of decisions that were done. I'd rather about it. And here's the thing. To be fair, that saying could equally be, I'd rather buy cheap than stay employed. Who lost their job are equally to blame. So here's the thing: is that it's a very complex situation. The closer you are to the East Coast, where steel and shipyards and manufacturing was at the heart and soul of what built this country. I'm not from there, so I don't have the depth of field other than to say there are generations of families that built America and stood on each other's shoulders to get us to where we could just buy a bunch of stuff in China. Personally, I'd rather pay more and get a higher quality product that's manufactured in the United States, which gets me to the price point around Mesa Boogies, is that they are proudly manufactured in California. And if you're going to do something like that, it's going to be expensive. They've been expensive since I bought my first one in 1980, maybe 81, but I'm pretty sure it was 1980. But the other thing is that, as I kind of think about the ghost yard of different amps that I've got, the PVs that I blew up repeatedly, the other amps that, none of them really, I sold that first Mark IIB, but I'm sure that amp still sounds just as good as it did when I bought it. Might have to change the tubes, but Petaluma and hit up Lagunitas when you're out there. So, the quality and the care and the consideration that comes from the folks at Mesa Boogie, it costs a lot of money to do what they do. I don't think they're miserable capitalists trying to go, let me just try and extract as many dollars out of your pocket as I can. I think quality comes at a cost, and I think they're not cheap, and that's because they're not cheap. And everything about this amplifier, everything, like around me, there's 1, 2, 3. The Gibson's basically a Boogie. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 Boogie amps. None of them have a single flaw. They're all from decades of Boogie design. They're all great amplifiers. And the consistency of excellence in design and manufacturing, I'll say, is unparalleled by any brand that I see in this room. If I look at the generations and the era that these amplifiers have gone through. So out of frame is a JP2C, and the way you can tell, Clark, and I'm not going, the way you can tell, so let me be clear, the JP2C has 2 graphic EQs, which I wish the Mark 7 had. I wish it had. That is one of the things I wish I had. Sorry, I don't mean to, salaries to artisans, I'm not complaining. True that all parts from out of the USA. So here's the thing, it's just like, again, I'm not some crazy purist. I'm celebrating this box from China like an imbecile. Like, look at the box from China. What kind of moron? But I was like, you know what? This changed my perspective about China. The company that actually did, I've never seen anybody ship me anything with little feet on the bottom of the box so it didn't get trashed. This, I know this is how it came from China. Like, these people actually cared about my end user experience. I was like, okay, let me never paint the Chinese flag with, like, they're all a bunch of cheap so-and-sos, because I'm like, that's just wrong. And I was like, okay, I get this. I had it wrong. There's a lot of, we do it as cheap as we can in China, but to paint everybody in China like that, is grossly unfair. When I got this box and unpackaged this, and I just kind of went, these people mean business. So, in any case, I let me be hopefully clear. I'm not up on my soapbox. It's complex. None of this stuff is easy, and people have a lot of emotions about it, especially if by chance your family came from generations of manufacturing in the United States, maybe came from Detroit. I guess one of the things I could say is, like, just look at Detroit and look at what's happened as this has shifted. It's complex. I think we need unions. This is as close as I'm going to get to politics. We need unions because employees get taken advantage by employers. But the unions have also been part of the problem. There's corruption in unions, in case you hadn't heard about this thing called the mafia. So it's a complex problem that it's above my pay grade to have solutions for. Yeah, Brett, I have just had an amazing experience. There you go. Awesome. I even bought it used, and they transferred the factory warranty to me. That is totally unheard of. Michael, hey. Okay, all right. First of all, I hope that wasn't, again, ranty. It's more a matter of, like, first of all, I was really moved that somebody in China cared about me enough as an end user that they will never meet and never see to go, we want to make sure your stupid little studio shelves that actually matter a big deal to me. I use them every day. They are my little boxes that I organize all my stuff in my studio. Come on out. Like, these little shelves that, although that may look like mayhem to you, but the fact that my slides all have a place where they live. My picks have a place where they live. My different types of slides and my speaker, when I'm miking up a speaker cabinet, that guy has a place where it lives. This is a huge part of me attempting to get my act together. And I realize kind of from afar it looks like a mess, but I know where all this stuff is. This, for me, in my studio, is one of the most important things that has ever happened. All right, get in there. Come on. There we go. One of the most important things that's happened in my world, because what I'm about to do in terms of my throughput, those shelves to me mean progress. So the fact that they cared that much about me, I'm like, you know what? My bad attitude has been amended. And, you know, I just love this boogie stuff. I rant done. Holy cow. A good value comparison of products from overseas. Quality. The original company controls the end user quality. Hold on a second. A good value comparison of products from overseas of quality is that the original company controls the end user quality value added. So, and that is a very wise comment, which is, you know, I know this box is made in China. I know that. Yeah, there it is. Designed and engineered in Saint-Jury, France, made in China. You know, and I know I can depend on this box, as I have. So, as you pointed out, and eloquently so, ultimately, the company doing the manufacturing it has a responsibility to the end user. Michael, above pay grade. Come on, there we go. But we vote. There we go. At the ballot box and with our dollars, some of this is inescapable at times. Potentiometers, for example, are tested and branded here, but made overseas 100%. Noted. There we go. So, DEFCON Clark. I love that, by the way. I love Synergy amps assembled in the U.S. with PCBs made in China. So, one of the microphones you're going to be hearing a lot about, actually, you're hearing it today. Up above me is a Roswell Pro Audio Mini K67X. That's my new mic in the room because I was tired of the way my shotgun was working. And for me, this is a big improvement. It is manufactured. All the parts are manufactured in China. But my buddy Matt from Roswell Pro Audio cherry picks the parts from the manufacturers that he wants, and it's assembled here in Northern California. It would be cheaper to assemble in China, but he wants to have the ability of the quality assurance to go through the parts, assemble them as he would assemble them in Northern California, and make sure they hold up to his standards. So you're completely correct. This is, boy, if I wanted to get myself in trouble, I would do an episode on the podcast about manufactured overseas. I don't know if I want to step in it that much. It's a very interesting topic. What's going on, Mike? Great to see you again, my friend. Thanks for stopping in. I love all boogies, and when I need help, they are always right there for me. Top shelf sound quality and service. And that is an experience that is really, you know, again, the experience of the end user is such an important thing. We are now getting boogies again in Europe, and so this is it's actually a really exciting time because, you know, there haven't been boogies for like 3 years at least. I think it's maybe more like 5. So it's a pretty exciting time, and this amp, I just love it. All right, hey, I need to actually get ready to teach. Mike Rand, love my JP2C. What an amazing amp. With those two graphic egos. Oh, holy cow. Okay, hang on a second. I got to keep up. Oh, hit me in the raw spot. Look at you. Oh my word. Holy cow. Mike. Holy cow. Thou'st boogie to the max. I don't have a tri-axis here. I'm like, oh, that's some serious ampage. Way to go. That new mic certainly pucks up the squeaky rodent repellent much more. So the funny thing is that I have to answer to that. So I have these. They're made in China. I'm in Doppler'S Gear Garage. It's a garage, and so there was a rodent that was deciding he liked to live in the room here because there's heat in here. It's warm. It's nice and cozy. So I got these repellents that make this terrible noise. But there's 2 modes. I found out that there's one mode that seems to be just as repellent. I and you can't hear, so it's no longer picking that up. But I kind of went overboard. There's like 6 of them hooked up on the different outlets in the ceiling here. There we go. Hold on. So in any case, this mic for me is much better. I kind of fight a battle. It was actually originally right there. I don't like a mic in frame since we're having this conversation. So it's a little bit further up, so it gets a little bit more of the reflection from the ceiling, which kind of bums me out. I personally prefer the sound of it being about there and being able to talk about that volume. It's a better sound, but I don't want it in frame. I hate a microphone in frame, so it's the lesser of two evils. All right. Well, that Roswell mic replaced the shotgun mic. Very interesting. Yeah. So and I'm very, very happy with this microphone. It's just a great sounding mic. And thank you, Chris. Yeah, I switched from Facebook to YouTube so I can look up things with the stream in the background. I love that. Excellent, Clark. Always a pleasure. Sean, have a great weekend. Thank you to everyone. Mike, Mike, we've had this conversation a little bit already in the stream, but I will revisit this. I think it wasn't the sound system. I think that room is one of the rooms that was originally designed for a completely different type of music. As an end result, the way it responds to standing waves, the way it responds to loud rock music, getting acoustically excited. I think that room was not the best live room. And having seen Joe and Steve fairly recently at the Fox Theater here in the Bay Area, my guess is that it's an environmental thing, and that happens. But it was a beautiful venue. Just the sound was not as good as it was at the Fox. Griffin, always a pleasure. Thanks so much, my friend. Mike, Matt, rather. Holy cow! I got microphones on the brain. Enjoy the teaching day. Pleasure to hear you're not right. Boom! Right there. But thank you. Yeah, no, the bass articulation was, it was inarticulate. Isn't it Beacon where the Almonds had a yearly early residency? I don't know. How about that? That sounds right. Hang on a second. Allman Brothers. Although it may be at the Fillmore, New York. Hold on. I don't know this because I'm not. All right, 10 Explosive in New York. All right, hang on a second. No, hang on a second. All right, they did play the Beacon. All right. (2009), but we're looking for like early Almonds. There we go. Not see, there we go. There we go. A tradition, 20 years. Almond. Oh, come on. I don't know. I don't want your cookie. All right. No. All right. New York Times. I flip and hate this. They tease you. They show you the story. So, yeah, the Beacon Theater is obviously a destination point. But again, if you think about the Allman Brothers, which is kind of this very kind of blues, rootsy rock thing, and you think about the Satch and Vi thing, it's a different dealio. But you are correct. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Doug doesn't like cookies. Oh, that's hilarious. All right, I have had so much fun hanging out. You have a great... And what happened to the 1 hour show today anyway? 2 hours and 19 minutes. Thank you so much for hanging out. Have a great day. Thank you for making my day. This is always so much fun. And there's this. Shoot me an email. Doug. Oh, no, I don't want you. Oh, that's not what I want right there. There's this little bit of business. There you go. That is the jam track of the week. Gosh darn it, that is in D minor pentatonic. And the notes of D minor pentatonic are D, F, G, A, C, and D. So the point being is that if you want to hang out and jam with that, you can also kind of hang out with Dorian, and then kind of when it goes to the, what is that? It's a B flat. it goes to D minor just for that moment, and then it's kind of mainly D minor pentatonic, kind of Do-Re-Mi. So if you shoot me an email at dougdopplermusic@gmail.com, I will get that off to you by the end of the day because it's already been bounced. And sooner than later, I actually will be getting out a weekly email that'll include this and probably links to the other ones and just kind of stuff. But I will respect the sanctity of your inbox. All right. Let's go 6 hours like we did before. Awesome. All right. Brad, thank you so much. Mike, thank you. Brett, thank you. Everybody. And I look forward to seeing you next Saturday. Cheers. Bye-bye. Oh, hang on. Let's just...